Celsius.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones. 0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Can't believe that the chief constable couldn't work out how to kill himself. I mean, I'm not, no. Don't be like that. I just think it's not hard to know what to do, is it? I mean, doing it, I'm sure that's I don't know, but I'm sure it's quite difficult to achieve it. But I mean, what does it have on a suicide website? And what credibility has a suicide website got anyway? Because all the ones that are good at it don't write. I don't understand. The world's a strange place. It just upsets me. You're right. Yes. But no, I just find the whole thing balmy. I mean, all right, he was having trouble. He'd been playing away with lots of people and all the rest of it, and it was all falling apart in his hands, or at least his trousers. And he decides, I've had enough of this, I wish to depart this mortal coil. And I appreciate that that's horrible. A horrible position to find yourself in, no matter how much you are to blame. It's a horrible position to find yourself in. But given that he'd been a copper for donkey's years, you would think he knew all the methods, the rope, the pills, the jumping off bridges. He'll have seen it all, won't he? The hose pipe from the car exhaust. I mean, he must have known how to do it. What do he need a website for? I'm confused.
Mornings sound better with Eamon O'Neill and Diane Oxbury.
Eamon and Diane.
But if you are looking for another job, there's a top cop job going in London.
Jerry Graham, he wore the uniform well, and that always works for me.
Hello, Diane. Yes, she can. Can you make the interview panel?
Eamon and Diane and you.
So what was for tea in your house last night?
I made beef stew and Herbie dumplings.
You put lettuce in, all leftover salad.
No.
She left it
Extra that.
Old lettuce.
The station with Eamon and Diane for breakfast.
Good morning.
Uh-oh.
Back tomorrow morning from 6 at BBC Radio Manchester.
Good day to you, anyway. You all right? Good. The number, 0161 228 2255. The subject, entirely up to you. I don't mind at all. Talk about anything, not fussed either way. And the email address, radiomanchester at bbc.co.uk. And the text number, if you're that way out, 07786 206 951. So that's it. That's the process by which you might communicate. And as it's Monday and we've perhaps not done it for some time, you can also do it via snail mail. Yeah. Allan Beswick at BBC Radio Manchester, P.O. Box 951, Manchester, M6060 1SD. So there. The other thing about this inquest is that his floozies, Todd's alleged floozies, it is said, have been told they can have leave, presumably to turn up and, I don't know, watch his widow's crike. I don't know, what do they want time off for? His floozies, that's the ones that are in the cops. I mean, obviously the ones that aren't in the cops, the police authority has no authority to give them time off. But if you're, I bet there's a load of them coming forward. Yeah, I did him once. Yeah, can I have a week in Benidorm? You'd be queuing up, wouldn't you? But I think they'll have to take it as leave. I don't think it's time off on full pay. And it doesn't, I think it's part of the leave. So we better get that straight. We don't want to get the police authority into any more trouble than they are, do we really?
Belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Right, well, let's start looking at the papers then. Don't join the Met, say black officers, black police officers. Now, we had a discussion the other day about what constitutes a black police officer. Given that black people aren't black anyway, they're brown, like white people aren't white. In my case, they're a sort of, well, at the moment, a dingy yellow. And it'll be a less dingy yellow and more of an orange in the middle of the summer. But at this time of the year, it's a very, very, very light yellow with light brown spots. So what do they mean when they say black? Do they mean that you're not absolutely white? You see, are they talking to mixed race individuals? Are they talking to Chinese descendant individuals? Are they talking to Asian individuals? Who are they talking to when they say, if you're black, don't join the Metropolitan Police. Who do they mean? Perhaps they just mean people called black. Well, why not? They let that woman called Dick in. So, no, I don't understand all this. I'm out my depth. I've always been out my depth, but I'm a lot further out than usual here. Black police officers have called for a boycott of the country's biggest force amid claims they face racial abuse from their colleagues. The National Black Police Association also plans to take out newspaper advertisements telling potential recruits not to join the Metropolitan Police. A senior source at the association said, quote, "We would be failing in our duty not to tell potential applicants that what a hostile and racist situation it is there." The call came as 7 in 10 ethnic minority officers across the country said they'd been victims of racism, claimed they'd had to work twice as hard as white colleagues to gain promotion. It's very strange, isn't it? The BBC Panorama programme to be shown tonight claims 30% of ethnic officers believe racism has damaged their careers. Now, there's a thing there, isn't there? First of all, 70% of ethnic officers, 70% of ethnic officers don't believe racism has affected their careers. Just look at the arithmetic. The National Black Police Association, who I presume, I've no way of knowing, but who I presume sees itself as representing black police officers, ethnic. I mean, we're all ethnic. It's very difficult to come up with a word, but non-Indigenous for the past 3 generations. You see how hard it is. But non-Indigenous people into the force. So you would think that the association represents them all, but apparently not. It only represents 30%, because 70% of the officers questioned, the so-called ethnic officers questioned by Panorama, 70% said, it's all right, don't know what the fuss is about. We have to deduce that because 30% said that they felt that their colour, their skin colour, had interfered with their promotion. 30% felt that. Of course they did. Why not? It may be they were just crap at the job. I don't know, but it may be. Certainly amongst that 30%, there's got to be at least 10% who didn't get promoted because they were crap at it. Yeah? And actually thought, well, I'm not getting promoted, I've got black skin, it can't be a coincidence. It's a reasonable deduction, but it doesn't make it right. I'm sorry, it doesn't. So amongst the 30%, and I quote, who felt that they were not progressing up the ladder because they were black, they could have got that wrong. They might be not progressing up the ladder because, frankly, they're bloody rubbish at the job. Perfect. And what about all the white coppers? I don't know the statistics, but what about all the white coppers who don't go up the ladder? Are they thinking, I'm not going up the ladder because I'm white, because I'm making way for the black people? The whole thing is fraught, and it means nothing. Utterly nothing. 0161 228 2255. John in Salford. Hiya, John.
Hi, Alan.
What have you got?
I've just been reading the paper this morning and I've seen a video about the Starbucks cafe.
Yeah, go on.
Wasting all that water. An absolute disgrace. Yet these companies tell us to say, stop using our water when we have like a few weeks of sunshine, when we haven't had any this year, like, well, an absolute disgrace that they're leaving the water and saying it's for health reasons, and they've even proved that they don't need it for health reasons whatsoever. They should just put meters in the shops. Simple as that. And if they want to use that water all day, you charge them for every bit that they use.
I think you might find that they've got meters in the shops.
Well, they must have big bills now.
Well, they do have big bills, but when somebody can sell you a pint of milk for £2.50, which is what we're talking about, if somebody can sell you a pint of milk for £2.50, they're not going to be worried about the water bill, are they?
Exactly. I mean, it just seems a disgrace that they can. And there's no one from the company that's just come out and said why are they doing it properly, or are they going to stop doing it? Because it's, I mean, like I say, 23 million litres of water. It's an absolute disgrace.
But
nothing will get done about it.
Well, first of all, nothing will get done about it because we have to consider whether anything's being done wrong here. Anything wrong is being done here. Because, first of all, I mean, they've got a defence. Ignore the defence for a moment, but I will mention it just for a bit of balance. But it doesn't matter. They pay for the water, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's just... As I say, if we left on for 13 hours a day non-stop, you know what I mean? They were telling us to stop doing it.
Well, well, they might be telling you to stop doing it, but in the end, that's what it's for. I know that some of it gets wasted, but who cares? It's water, for God's sake. It's not a massive resource that we'll never get back. It goes, well, it's that old song, isn't it? It goes down the drain, into the river, out to the sea, up into the sky, back down again. It's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, some of these countries where they do have these Starbucks, actually cafes, like, you know, I mean, I know Australia's like, we don't get the weather they do.
No.
They've got, like, droughts, aren't they, as well? Like,
They've got huge droughts, yes, in Australia. And perhaps you see, the best way, and this will scare the living daylights out of you, the best way to get people to conserve something is to price it accordingly. Now, we've got people recently using their cars less frequently because it's very expensive, so they use them less frequently.
Yeah,
we've got people...
Oil prices have gone down for it's $90 a barrel, I think.
Well, it's gone down again, you're absolutely right, but the price that's being paid at the pumps is still high, and so people are using it sparingly, should we say. The same applies to electricity and gas. People are turning their central heating down slightly. They're
some people are not even using it,
insulating their homes. Some people not. Why? Because it's expensive. The only way to stop people wasting water is to do with water what they did with electricity. And that is virtually remove the regulations and let the water companies charge whatever they think they can get away with.
Well, they are, aren't they?
No, they're not. They're very, very regulated.
Well, I think we're paying £47 a month.
£47 a month?
Yeah.
For water?
Yeah.
So you're paying £500 a year?
Yeah.
Roughly? And you think that's a lot?
I think it's a lot, yeah. I think it's a lot, yeah.
What about if they freed it all up and they said, OK, the water company thinks, well, people can't live without water, so let's double it. That'll stop them wasting it. Let's double it. Let's treble it.
If they could do it, they'd get away with it, wouldn't they?
Of course, they would. That's what I'm saying. Like, if we deregulate water, if we deregulate it, and we say to the water companies, charge, you're a business, charge what you think you can get. Everybody else, all the other businesses, the phone companies, they all charge what they can get. You get absolutely stuffed. But at least you wouldn't waste any.
You probably wouldn't.
Good on you, John.
Okay,
the story that John's talking about is all over the front page of The Sun. They come up with a wonderful headline, Starbucks. Green coffee giant. Now, that's a strange word because coffee's known as green coffee before it's roasted, but never mind. Green coffee giant wastes 23 million litres of water each day by insisting that the taps are left on. Coffee chain Starbucks wastes 23 million litres of water a day because staff worldwide are told to run taps non-stop, according to a Sun investigation, which probably amounted to asking somebody. That would fill an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 83 minutes. Now, this is what Starbucks say. They've defended their decision against claims that it wastes water because the worldwide chain said the use of non-stop running cold tap behind the counter in its coffee shops to serve as a dipper well for keeping utensils clean means that it meets or exceeds health standards. The use of the tap was revealed by The Sun and has been attacked by water companies and water conservation groups as phenomenally wasteful. But would you want to be given your coffee to be prepared with equipment that's been washed in dirty water? Do you remember in pubs? When I worked in pubs, oh, God, Lord, no, I was 18 years of age, it's 40-odd years ago. But when I worked in pubs, they used to have a sink, and they'd fill the sink with warmish water. Not too hot, because they didn't want the grasses to crack. So, warmish water. They'd put in the pub the water cleaning fluid, and inside it, there'd be a little gadget, a little rubber gadget with thongs on it and things. It sounds more attractive than it is, I promise you. And then you'd plunge the glass up and down on it. But you were plunging the glass up and down on this to get all the stale beer out of it. But you were actually washing the glasses in dirty water. There. That's what you were doing. Well, that's what they'd be doing at Starbucks if they didn't have constantly running water. So one is left to say, what's the problem? Why have we got a split police force? It should never have been allowed, says Keith in Blackpool. Well, the police force itself, Keith, is not split. This is just an association within the police force, the Black Police Officers Association. What we're actually saying is it's a club, if you like. Now, OK, it's a club. They don't have trade unions in the police, but it has a sort of voice of the people type club. But it's just like there being a rugby club for the police force, or a I don't know, a shooting club. Well, that'd be unfortunate, wouldn't it? You wouldn't let no Brazilians in, would you? It'd be far too dangerous for them. But, you know, it's just like a private club within the police force, really. It's got no power. But you do have to wonder, don't you? And then Steve says, so that announcement that black people shouldn't join the Metropolitan Police, do they mean brown people shouldn't join the boys in blue? That's very good, Steve. Very good indeed. 12:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. What have you got to say for yourself? It's Headlines Times. Michelle Adamson.
An inquest has heard how Michael Todd sent a last text message before he died saying, "I'm sorry for what I've done. Forgive me in another life." The former chief constable also visited websites about suicide in the days before his body was found in Snowdonia. A professional footballer has been jailed for 7 years after 2 young boys from Trafford died in a crash on the M6. Former Plymouth Argyle goalkeeper Luke McCormick admitted causing the deaths by dangerous driving of 10-year-old Aaron Peake and his 8-year-old brother Ben from Partington. And taxpayers' money could be used to buy up shares from banks. Gordon Brown's thinking about the multi-billion-pound plan in the hope it'll make the banks happier to start lending money again. And Manchester's weather staying sunny at first this afternoon, but it will become cloudier later, highs of 12 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Let's take a quick peek firstly to traffic on the M60, and all seems fairly quiet at the moment, no major problems to report. M62 traffic over the Pennines again coping quite well between junction 22 Rishworth Moor and 18 Sinister Island. Let's take a quick look then to the trains, and delays of up to an hour can be expected now on Virgin train services between Crewe, Preston and Liverpool Lime Street due to an earlier broken down train at Acton Bridge and problems at the minute with the signalling in the Winsford area. Now train services have resumed running north of Crewe to and from Preston and Liverpool Line Street, but delays of up to an hour can still be expected in both directions. If you can update me further though, call in on 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
You're never more than 20 minutes away from the latest traffic through the day.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Aye, all right. Oh, blimey. Well, that's no good. Nah, that's rubbish. No, I'm just looking at a couple of sites. I've typed suicide into Google. Obviously, they've offered me Wikipedia. Wikipedia, unfortunately, just gives us what would you call it? A definition of the word. But I think we're all right with that. I think we know what the word means between us. You know, I mean. One of us might not, but I think between us we probably know what the word means. But where are these suicide websites that he's said to have been visiting? I can't find them. There's one. 10 common methods of suicide. You see, is it? Are you feeling... Stop. Please stop long enough to read this. It'll only take depression and suicide in men. You know, a BBC programme. Facebook suicide, the end of virtual life. Suicide crisis. Best results for suicide. Well, I'm at the end of the first page, and I'm not an apath of advice. There's a load of advice like the Samaritans and all that lot trying to stop me, but I can't find anything on here that would actually help. He must have spent ages looking for it. I don't have that kind of time. I don't have the benefit. The official site of commercial suicide records. Don't even... Oh, I see. That must... Is that a record label? Looks suicide rates in different groups, methods used, attitudes... Oh, that's Mind. Well, they know a bit about it, don't they? So that's... No. If you... Well, let's have a look at this one. If you're feeling suicidal, read this one first. There we go. But a lot of people want to give it... Suicide not chosen. It happens when the pain is... And it's all about... Blah, blah. There's no help there either. That's another one. That's not telling you how to do it. Well, that's rubbish, that. Rubbish. I thought the internet could provide me with everything I need. Dave from Woodley said, would it be considered racist if there was a white policeman club? Oh, God, yes. Oh, good Lord, yes. If they had a white police officers association or a non-ethnic, I don't know how you'd phrase it, if they had a non-ethnic police officers association. Well, of course, the Black Police Officers Association will say that all police associations are non-ethnic. Exactly. It's divisive, isn't it? That's the thing. That's the thing that annoys me. It's the idea that there's us and them. Whoever us might be and whoever they might be. But once you start saying we've got an association for that, an association for that, you end up with an association or an organisation that's broken up into great clumps of us and them. And I hate it. It's sort of intellectual ghettoising people. Ludicrous. Didn't Peter Mandelson look just glowing on TV over the weekend? I suppose he's sitting somewhere right now having lunch. Perhaps eating a kitten, says Neil in Bebington. Well, no, he's not. Peter Mandelson has been rushed to hospital this morning with kidney stones. And you make your own judgment of whether this is good or bad, but it's said not to be life-threatening. Obviously, I'm pleased at that. Obviously, I wouldn't wish the lad any harm at all. Not a jot. But they were... So Peter Mandelson has been rushed to hospital, suffering from kidney stones. Alan, says Kevin, how can we ever have a fully integrated police force, or any other employer for that matter, if we have internal decisions? We even have a black-on-black crime specialist unit. In other words, a unit for people where black people have committed crimes against other black people. I've asked this question before. Why do they employ mainly German Shepherd dogs? What's wrong with the rest of the world's dogs? Yeah, well, that's not even funny, and it wasn't funny when you asked it the first time. But it is divisive. There's no other word for it. It is divisive. If you have an if the BBC... I better be careful here, I don't know whether we have. But if the BBC decided, right, well, we're going to have a black BBC Employees Association, what would be the flaming point of it? What would be the point? The point could only be to point out the difference. Look, and that comes back to what I said earlier. It's them and us. You see, I would very much prefer that we just left it all. Yeah? Just left it and just carried on behaving the way we behave and learning from it. It doesn't strike me as being too much to ask, really. Does it? Or is it just me? I think it might be. Anyway, we don't start. We've picked the sun up. We might as well carry on with it. OJ's going down. Yeah, no doubt he'll say because it's black. Lawyers for O.J. Simpson claim his robbery conviction was payback because half the jurors disagreed with his murder acquittal 13 years ago. The ex-American football star who faces life in prison intends to appeal against the verdict for the botched heist. We say faces life in prison because presently we've not got his sentence, because he's not being sentenced until early in December. It seems a long time, but I think he'll be in pokey till then. Oh, here we are. He's not gone to hospital yet, Mandelson. He's going later. Yeah, Mr. Mandelson emerged from a meeting shortly before 12:20. See, we're bang up to date with this. Accompanied by fellow Minister Baroness Vadera. I know, I love her cake. And the business secretary later today will have hospital treatment for a kidney stone. Said he was feeling very well, but declined to discuss what had happened at the meeting. So there you are. So he has got a kidney stone, but it's not killing him. I should be careful talking about suicide, says Kevin. You'll have a queue down Oxford Road offering you assistance, whether it's legal or not. That's very, very cruel. And we don't. And when I was talking about it, I wasn't looking it up with a view to having a go at it. I was looking it up with a view to finding out what you find out when you look it up. But then, isn't that what all the child pornography fellas say? I was just having a look to see what it was like. Yeah, just having a look. So it's not much of a defence. It's not seen any of them out. The Great Drain robbery, millions of gallons down the plug hole, enough to keep a country alive. The Change Green Dream, here's a good one. Starbucks pour away millions of water every day whilst boasting how it gives back to the environment and communities. By taking steps to reduce waste from our operations and recycle, we can preserve the Earth's natural resources. But not the water, obviously. No, obviously the water, well, You can't. You just do what you like with that. It's cheap. That's the trouble. Water is too cheap. We must make it dearer, make it more expensive. It's the only way forward. Thousands are on the run, apparently, in the UK. Thousands of criminals are on the run, which is just as well, because we'd never fit them in the jails otherwise, would we? And then there'd be all sorts going on. But according to the Metro, murderers and rapists are among the thousands of bail bandits. It's a great phrase, isn't it? Bail bandits. We like that. Thousands of bail bandits on the run in Britain. About 17,000 people in London alone, 17,000 people in London alone failed to turn up at court whilst on bail last year. The figures have been obtained by the Liberal Democrats. Of those, 1,567, that's 9%, are still at large. More than 3,000 of those who jumped bail in London were issued a Category A bench warrant for their failure to appear, and they were charged with murder, robbers, sex offenders, of which there are still 295 roaming the streets of London, presumably singing that Ralph McTell song. Quite extraordinary that so many people fail to attend court, and that itself is an offence. I wonder what happens to them when they're finally brought before the beak. Brian, although I was successful in gaining promotions in the police service during my career, I had rejections also. All I could do in these circumstances was shrug my shoulders and try again. There was no appeal mechanism. How I wish, though, I'd belonged to an ethnic minority, knowing what I know now. I would have just shouted, racial discrimination. Of course, I don't know if it would have been successful, but it would have been a better option than shoulder shrugging, which was all that was available to me and my white colleagues. Well, quite. But that ought to be, in terms of promotion, that ought to be all that's available to everybody. But as soon as you start to divide the world, then I'm afraid you get in the position where those who are on one side of the fence believe they're being, if you like, done down by those on the other. And it doesn't matter which way round you look. I hear people on here every day almost saying, I'm white, the blacks get all the jobs. I'm black, the whites get all the jobs. I'm black, the police stop me. I'm white, the police don't stop me. You know, it just goes on and on and on, because we're looking at life as if we live on opposite sides of the fence, and we don't. We all occupy the same world. We all occupy the same planet. We all live according to that which we have, and it ought not to affect the colour of our skin. Alan in Glossop says, I have the answer to the massive energy price hikes and the fact that we're all going to freeze to death this winter. Global warming is the answer. Let's start using more carrier bags, burning coal, swapping energy-saving light bulbs for the old-fashioned one. Hey, presto, the next thing you know, it's the Mediterranean in Manchester. Good point. We like it, Alan. Thank you very much indeed. I use Sainsbury's supermarket because the doorway to their car park is on my way to work. And I go in there, and they've just brought in this rule where you have to ask now for a carrier bag. They still give you a carrier bag, but you have to ask. And it's just balmy. Utterly balmy. Lewis in Bolton says, last week there was a report on Radio Manchester that a man who'd made nuisance calls was locked up for his endeavours. In the report there was audio from one of his victims who claimed that she'd been made to read a script of 12 items of a provocative nature, which she claimed once she was in the conversation she found it hard to get out of. Very strange. What do you think? Yeah, but people are like that. Mandy and his kidney stones. No, I think it's a thorn from Gordon's side. I'm sorry, that had been presented rather poorly. Not by you, but by the system. David in Crumpsall, the police use mainly German shepherd dogs because when they used Australian shepherd dogs, they got too friendly with the criminals. I'm sure that's funny, but I don't understand it. And Tom in Ashton talking about Mandelson and his kidney stone. I hope he's up to date with his stamps. Oh, fabulous. Do you remember when your national insurance thing, you had to actually buy a stamp, lick it and stick it and put it on? Very strange, but that's what you had to do. So that's what he means by that. For those of tender years, who haven't a clue what the phrase, "I hope he's up to date with his stamps" means. I'm afraid it is that. But I don't think they used to... They used to check your stamps, rather like they now call it your contribution record, don't they? But they used to check your stamps years ago before they gave you benefits. By that we mean benefits that were contributory benefits, as they were known. In other words, you paid into the system with national insurance. I don't think they ever checked your stamps at the National Health Hospital, certainly not in my day, and I've been there a few times, but I don't think they did that. But you never know. You tell me, did they? Did you ever have to deliver... Was it ever sort of means-tested at the NHS? Probably not. Todd's women offered time off. They should have said... I mean, newspapers are so keen on alliteration. The Manchester Evening News missed a trick there. It should have been Todd's Totty offered time off. Would have been a much better headline, but never mind, who am I? Neil Keeling's the reporter. Women police officers believed to have had affairs with former Chief Constable Michael Todd have been told they can apply for leave during the inquest into his death. A coroner in North Wales today opens a hearing to examine events leading up to the discovery of Mr Todd's body on a mountainside in Snowdonia last March. He was alleged to have had affairs with a number of women employed by Greater Manchester Police, and his private life was in turmoil when he died. The MEN has learned that a senior officer has contacted at least 10 women. 10 women. How did he ever have time to be a copper? Dear God, 10 women. And so he wasn't here that long. I mean, if he'd been here a couple of decades, you'd have thought, well, fair enough. But 10 women? Dear God, that's at least 3 a night. He was hardly ever here. Lord above. But hey, good luck to the lad, I say. Well, it's a bit late, but there you are. It's all in the way. Take leave during the inquest if they wish. All the women in GMP suspected of having an affair with Mr Todd, or... those who have been named in the press are being linked with him, will be offered paid leave. Paid leave. So not only do they get a bit of rumpy-pumpy with the boss, but once the boss's inquest comes up, they get a bit of free time off. It's beginning to look good. I recommend, unless you're black, in which case you shouldn't join, because that's what they've said, but I recommend that if you're white enough and prepared to sleep around a bit, you should join the cops. Oh, it's the way forward. You join in, you get a couple of rolls in the hay with the Chief Constable. When he finally tops himself, assuming he did, when he finally tops himself, you get a week off. It's fantastic. They don't half look after you in the modern police force.
Allan Beswick with you on the phones.
0161 228 2255.
BBC Radio Manchester.
And one of our own's been promoted, Phil Wallace. He's had a checkered career, hasn't he, really? Yeah, the Greater Manchester MP, at the centre of a row over Muslim women wearing a veil, has been named the new immigration minister. Phil Wallace, one of ours, as I say, MP for Oldham East and Saddleworth, prompted anger in some sections of the community 2 years ago when he said some people could find veils frightening and intimidating. Heaven knows why. Earlier this year, he suggested that the practice of first cousin marriage in Britain's Pakistani community was leading to birth defects. Mr Wallace, who's one of Labour's most vocal critics of the BNP, has said his efforts to raise awareness as first cousin marriages won support from doctors and members of the Asian community. Well, he's now been put in charge, effectively, of immigration. But what he has said, and perhaps this is more important, what he has said is that he's going to seriously consider, that's government speak for you'll get it unless anybody absolutely stops me, but he's going to seriously consider a cap on immigration. So there'll be a number of people that are allowed in, and after that, nothing. After that, nothing. The number of people moving to Britain could soon be capped, according to the new Immigration Minister, Phil Wallace. He warned that unless action was taken, the UK risked becoming Europe's most crowded country. He said There has to be a limit to the population. You have to have a think about the population implication. A recent EU report predicted the amount of people, I'm sure they mean the number, the amount of people living here will rise from 61 million to 77 million by 2060 unless immigration is more tightly controlled. Up until now, ministers have refused to cap the numbers, flocking, the Daily Miller's word, not mine, flocking to the UK, insisting we need skilled foreign workers to boost our economy. Do you support the idea of a cap on immigration? And if so, who would you limit it to? Who would you allow into the country and who would you not? You know my view. I expound it far too damned often on here. I'd open every boundary in the world. I'd say the planet is there. It's a globe. We wander about it. It's a tiny place, really. We wander about it. We drop ourselves where we like and we live where we like. That's how I'd have it. But I ain't going to get that in my lifetime. The world is populated by far too many selfish people for that. But who do you think should be allowed to come into the UK? I mean, surely you're not going to say you got a brown face. Yes, I know you're the best surgeon on the planet, but you ain't coming here, darky. I mean, you're not going to do that, are you? Or are you? Who do you think should be allowed in to live? I'm not talking about on holidays. Who do you think should be allowed to come to live in the UK? Just gone 20 to 1 on BBC Radio Manchester. The news headlines, Michelle Adams.
An inquest has heard how Michael Todd sent a last text message before he died, saying, "I'm sorry for what I've done. Forgive me in another life." The former chief constable also visited websites about suicide in the days before his body was found in Snowdonia. 12 years in jail for a professional footballer who caused the deaths by dangerous driving of 2 boys from Trafford. A woman's been sexually assaulted twice by the same man in Wigan in the space of 3 days. And Manchester's weather staying sunny at first this afternoon, but it will become cloudier later, highs of 12 Celsius.
Is it just me, or would you have gone home another way as well?
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
Well, if you're travelling through Newton Willows, watch out for disruption on Phipps Lane. It's closed in both directions between Chapel Lane and Back Lane, so again, watch out for delays around the area. A couple of problems on public transport. Delays of up to 1 hour can be expected on Virgin trains between Crewe, Preston and Liverpool Lime Street because of an earlier broken down train in the Acton Bridge area. We're still seeing signalling problems in the Winsford area. However, train services have now resumed running north of Crewe to and from Preston and Liverpool Lime Street, but as I say, delays up to an hour can still be expected in both directions. Now, don't forget, if you can update me further, call in on the travel line 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester, Sports with Steve Wilde.
Hello, good afternoon to you. Despite leading his side to the League Two playoff final last season, Rochdale's Keith Hill believes his job could be on the line if they produce any more performances like the one on Saturday. Hill was reacting to a 2-0 home defeat by Dagenham and Redbridge.
Have I lost the players? I would say I haven't lost the players, but only time will tell. If we were on a bad run now, for me, that type of performance could seriously get somebody the sack. It's the worst performance since we took over, in my opinion.
Well, Liverpool's comeback victory at Manchester City has come at a cost. Defender Martin Skrtel, who was stretchered off during the 3-2 win, suffered cruciate ligament damage to his right knee. It's an injury that could sideline Skrtel until Christmas. City will be without Pablo Zabaleta for 3 games following his sending off in a separate incident against Liverpool. Michael Owen still has an international future, according to England goalkeeping coach Ray Clements. Despite being left out of the latest squad, Owen won't feature in games against Kazakhstan and Belarus, despite proving his fitness and form with Newcastle. International breaks are hardly the kind of thing usually welcomed by the top clubs, but United's Mike Phelan believes Cristiano Ronaldo will benefit from some time with Portugal. He'll play World Cup qualifiers in Sweden and at home to Albania, and despite not yet being 100% fit, that's no problem for United's assistant manager.
Well, I think Cristiano will say himself that, he's still got a bit to do, but he's now got an international setup to go to. He's got a couple of games there, so by the time he comes back, he should be further forward and raring to go.
Gareth Owen could again find himself on the sidelines for Stockport's game at Bury in the Johnston Paints Trophy tomorrow. Owen missed the win over Oldham on Friday after taking exception to being substituted in a previous match. The Shakers have injury doubts over Effie Soji, David Buchanan, Andy Morell and Michael Jones ahead of that game. Poland failed to reinstate the country's football association before today's deadline set by FIFA, who'd demanded a reversal of the decision. Poland now risks suspension from all competitions and the loss of rights to co-host the 2012 European Championships. James de Gale, Britain's Olympic middleweight boxing champion, says he'd love to defend the title at the London 2012 Games. However, he's torn between doing that and accepting one of the financially lucrative offers he's had to turn professional. But will £1 million be enough?
To be honest, I'm looking for more than that. I'm looking for over like a couple of years. I'm being serious, I'm being truthful, that's who I am. I'm looking 2 million over 2 years maybe, get me? That's what I'm looking at.
In Formula One motor racing, BMW Sauber have ended weeks of speculation by announcing it'll retain Robert Kubica and Nick Heidfeld as its drivers for next year. Kubica is currently third in the Drivers' Championship, with Heidfeld fifth. Thomas Pish will make his debut for Bellevue tonight against Coventry, despite walking away from a major pile-up on Saturday. The 30-year-old Pole was involved in a crash whilst riding for Birmingham in the Premier League. The Aces must win tonight to avoid next week's home and away relegation playoff against Wolverhampton.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station
comes tomorrow evening during Reloaded from 7 o'clock with news of both local matches in the Johnston Paints Trophy.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Oh, very good day to you. All right. Good-o. Good-o. We like it. I don't think I'm reading that out. I'm sorry, but I'm not. So go on then. Now, who do you think should be allowed into the UK? I know we all have different views on immigration. We all have different views on immigration. There are those of us that aren't bothered. There are those of us that think we should pull up the shutters and let nobody in, nobody at all, not even visitors in some cases. But who do you think should be allowed into the UK? And how do we quantify it? You can quantify it by race, by nationhood, quantify it by their criminality. In other words, anyone with a record, not in. Or quantify it by their occupation, their likelihood of contribution. There are so many different ways of quantifying who we will and will not allow into our country. It is, as I speak, our country. It's for us to decide. The fact that somebody's having a hard life in Africa or an excellent life in the United States of America is a complete irrelevance. It's our country. We make the decision who comes in. You know what mine is? But what's yours? Who do you think should be allowed in? What do you think our immigration policy should be? 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And of course you can text. And for the record, I'm not going to scream racist at you. It's our country. You are entitled to your point of view. If you're dead set against any immigration, full stop. I'd like to know why. I don't want to change your mind. I would hope that the logic of somebody else's argument would do that. But who do you think should be allowed into the UK? 0161 228 2255. And I'm talking about stay here for 5 years or live here. Who? Toyin in Newton Heath. Hi.
Hi, Alan.
Hi, what can we do for you?
Yeah, actually, I just want to say something about the call out to black people or colored people, as it were, not to join the Met Police.
Go on.
Yeah, and it's very appalling to know that in this day and age, people still look for someone to cane, someone to blame for their misfortunes and all that. Look, I am Nigerian, I'm African, and I came into this country, and I love this country like it's mine. But the fact remains that if I am not getting promoted at work, I think I have to go back to the drawing board and ask why. You know, ask what I'm doing, I'm not doing right, or I'm not doing enough that's making others go ahead of me. Because nothing anyone does, nothing anyone can do can make me feel less human, whether I'm yellow or blue or whatever. And I have found out that almost everyone is as a kind of bias, probably because of their environment, where they grew up and all that. If I'm talking to my daughter and she's talking so glowingly of some of her friends, sometimes I ask, where's she from? Well, that's in another way, not saying it, is she white or black, or is she like you? Do you get it now? Now, for someone to now take it too far and now make a call, where you have said it in the statistics, only 30% feel that way, 30% of colored people, I don't know whether it's black, whether it's a mixture, a potpourri of everyone from every other place except indigenous. But the fact remains that I do not believe that you will be doing your best at any job and promotion will pass you over, because what you do singles you out.
Well, okay, Dorian, you said that most people, as far as you're concerned, most people don't treat you any differently than they would their friend, their neighbour, or somebody who was born and brought up in the UK. What about the ones that don't? What about the ones that treat you differently?
Okay, I've had only one, maybe one that's verbal, that's spoken. Others, if they treat me differently and it's unspoken, I don't get bothered, because if you feel bold about something, if you feel you're right about something, you say it out. Probably my neighbor's daughter, she once called me a black cow, but the next morning I say, hey, hello. And we got talking and said, you hardly get angry. I said, no, I get angry. You call me a black cow, it doesn't make me a black cow.
Well, yes, but I was thinking more of your neighbours might, we all say horrible things when we're having an argument, don't we? And we don't mean them half the time. But I was meaning, apart from that, imagine you're working in a place and you don't get promoted, and yet someone who is clearly not as capable as you and has not done as well for the company as you or the organisation as you does get promoted. And then that happens again the following year. And again the following year, and all the time you're fit for promotion, good enough for promotion, delivering everything that you're required to deliver, and yet you don't get promotion. What are you going to think?
I'm not going to think it's because of my color. I'm going to think the people in charge or someone who's supposed to rate my work has some problems with me. I don't believe my color has anything to do with it. In fact, I've met the most wonderful people as my neighbors. We're the only, so to say, black family on my street. And, everyone smiles at everyone. Everyone looks after, out for the others. The kids, they come knocking, is my kid here? Is your son here? I've seen your son down there and all that. I've met the most wonderful people, and they've not treated me any differently. If they do privately, I do not know. But the fact remains that they smile at me, to me, that is enough. If we all can be civil to each other, there'll be less crime on the street.
That's for sure. Toyin, good to hear from you. Thank you very much indeed. Toyin is from Nigeria, I think she said. She's African. She doesn't really experience racism and says that people who say I'm not getting promoted and the reason is the colour of my skin ought to look to themselves and say, hang on a minute, maybe it's because I'm not doing it right. Maybe it's because I'm not finding the way to please my bosses. David in Altrincham, the way I see it is that any organisation that establishes a green, blue, pink, etc. club within its ranks is looking for distractions in order to get free press as and when it suits them, and also deflect the public's attention from the real issues. Funny how this latest issue coincides with the head of the Met losing his job. On the subject of the head of the Met losing his job, the Mayor of London, dear Boris Johnson, has been telling the Metropolitan Police Authority why he's ordered an inquiry into the concerns of black and Asian officers. Metropolitan Black Police Association has called for people from ethnic minorities not to join the force because it claims ethnic minority officers are treated less favourably than white staff. The Mayor said the force faced huge challenges, including the 2012 Olympic Games and the threat of terrorism. This is the kind of thing he's been saying. It's not all he's said. It was a much longer meeting than this. We must also ensure that we have a police force that has the full confidence of the community. And if the police are the public and the public are the police, then the police must resemble the communities they serve. That's why I've asked Cindy Butts, who's the Deputy Chairman of the Metropolitan Police Authority, to look at some key questions, such as the progression of black and minority ethnic candidates through the ranks of the service, the relation between staff associations and management, and the extent to which there is visible and effective leadership around race and faith issues. So there you are. That's it. He's ordered someone a deputy chairwoman of the Metropolitan Police Authority to look at the issue. You will recall, of course, that the 2 police chiefs ago, David Wilmot then, now Sir David Wilmot, you will recall that he was the first Chief Constable of Greater Manchester to acknowledge that Greater Manchester Police has what he described as institutionalised racism. Well, there are a number of ways that racism in the police force can manifest. There is the one that the Black Police Association are talking about, and that is the one where black police officers and Asian police officers, ethnic minority police officers, that's how we're describing them. It's a ghastly phrase, but there you are. Ethnic minority police officers feel that they're being overlooked for promotion and their life as a police officer is not equal to that of their so-called white colleagues. Well, OK. But there is another side to racism in the police force as well, is there not? And that is the racism of the way the police behave with the people, their customers, if you like, we, the community. Have you ever experienced racism from a police officer, whatever the colour, creed or otherwise of that officer?
Throughout the US presidential election of 2008, the candidates have talked of the future and of something else.
221 years ago, in a hall that still stands.
America's seen tough times before. We've always known.
To continue the long march of those who came before us. March
looks not to the future, but to the past for solutions that have failed us before.
To truly understand the American election, you need to look at the past. The American Future, a history by Simon Sharma, starts Friday evening at 9 on BBC Two.
A very good day to you. Are you all right? Who should come into Britain? Kevin says it's simple. Anybody who can contribute and make Britain a better place. A bit like the banks at the moment. You can't take it out unless you put some in first. The trouble with that definition, Kevin, is I don't know what you mean by it. I'm sorry, it's probably me, but when you say anyone who can contribute, well, everybody can contribute in some way. What do you mean? Do you mean financially? In other words, they have to have a job to come to. Well, does that mean that the job they're coming to is a job that somebody who's already here could have done? It's tricky. Do you mean that we're short? We might be short. I don't know whether we are, but I suspect we're not. We might be short of solicitors, say. So we let in solicitors. We might be short of bus drivers, as we were for a while. So we let in bus drivers. What do you mean? Anyone who can contribute. A, how do you measure what a person can contribute? And also, who does the measuring? Who do we hand over that responsibility to? Do we do it on an individual basis? Well, he's fit and strong and she's not so fit and not so strong. Or do we do it on the basis of, well, he's a plumber and we need plumbers, so let's have plumbers? I don't know. I'm not challenging what you say. I'm asking perhaps for a broader explanation of your point of view, because I find it imprecise, should we say. No reason why it should be precise. Dave of Greenfield says, if you're struggling with this suicide item, I'll get the wife to pop down and give you a demonstration. If you don't like it, you don't have to join in. I'm sure she won't mind. Apparently, he says you're so tight that if you were going to gas yourself, you'd go next door to do it. That's very funny. I like that. And so accurate, too. I don't know why. I shouldn't like it. It sounds... doesn't it? It sounds awfully cruel. But nonetheless, I found it funny. We were informed that black people cannot be racist on a race awareness course that we attend as a condition of employment. That's Baz in Salford. Whoever told you that, Baz is a cretin. I don't care what bloody course they're running. If somebody said to you that a black person cannot be racist, Baz, that person talking to you, whatever qualifications he or she has got, is a complete and utter cretin and ought to be doing something else for a living. Black people, green people, yellow people, Catholics, Protestants, Jews, Muslims, every single collective of people throughout the world is capable of being ist, including me. 10 women on the go, enough to drive any man to drink. Hey, Alan, says Bob. I think he's referring to the late Chief Constable of Greater Manchester. 10 women. Perhaps he spread them out. Never mind. Emma in Glossop says, we should quantify our needs. If we need nurses, then let nurses in, and their immediate families should be allowed to immigrate to Britain as well. Inconsequential of race. If we need nurses, we let nurses in. Plumbers. Emma in Glossop. I see the point. Thank you very much. 0161 228 2255.
You'll meet the man who travelled around Ireland with a fridge. Why? Tony Hawks will tell you tomorrow morning from 9 with me, Heather Stott.
So the new immigration minister, or at least Home Minister thingy person, Phil Willis, says we may have a cap on the number of immigrants allowed into the UK. How do we choose them? You tell me.
95.1 FM.
DAB Digital Radio.
And the World Wide Web.
This is Manchester.
BBC Radio Manchester.
At 1 o'clock, former Chief Constable Michael Todd looked at websites about suicide and sent farewell text messages in the days before his death. And
I am shocked about the speed, particularly with the influence of the alcohol and the fact that he was tired. I would have hoped and prayed that if Luke had stopped, this tragedy could have been avoided.
12 years in jail for a professional footballer who caused the deaths of 2 boys from Trafford.
Rochdale's manager says he's concerned for his future.
Well, this afternoon should be mostly dry and bright with top temperatures of 12 Celsius.
Good afternoon, I'm Michelle Adamson. An inquest has heard how Michael Todd sent a last text message before he died saying, I'm sorry for what I've done, forgive me in another life. The former Chief Constable also visited a number of websites to get advice on suicide in the run-up to his death and went to the Lake District the day before he disappeared with the intention of killing himself. From the inquest in Carnarvon, BBC Radio Manchester's Matt Trewern reports.
The inquest was told that Michael Todd sent 319 text messages in the 10 days leading up to his death. It seems many have thrown light on the investigation into his state of mind. None of the people he texted, phoned or emailed have been named, but the messages include warnings that he was losing it, in a dark place, and that he was thinking about killing himself. He also visited a number of websites to look at ways of suicide. On the day before he disappeared in North Wales, Michael Todd drove to the Lake District but then returned. He later sent a text message to a friend saying that he was going to kill himself but bottled out at the last minute. The inquiry continues.
Professional footballer Luke McCormick has been jailed for 7 years and 4 months after he admitted causing the deaths of 2 boys from Trafford when he was drink driving. 10-year-old Aaron Peake and his 8-year-old brother Ben from Partington were killed when Mr McCormick's black Range Rover ploughed into their car on the M6 in Staffordshire in June. The former Plymouth Argyle goalkeeper was twice the legal drink drive limit when the crash happened. Sergeant Steve Robinson from Staffordshire Police led the investigation and spoke of the reaction of Aaron and Ben's parents to today's sentencing.
Clearly, Amanda and Phil are very upset. They, I believe, would have preferred a slightly longer sentence. However, I think they realise that the judge has certain sentencing guidelines, and I believe that they will be able to now move forward.
A 49-year-old man's fighting for his life after he was hit by a car in North Manchester. The man was walking along Middleton Road in Crumpsall on Saturday night when the crash happened. He suffered serious head injuries and was taken to North Manchester General Hospital. He's been transferred to Hope Hospital, where he's been treated for a life-threatening injury. The energy regulator says millions of customers are still being treated unfairly, but there's no evidence that companies colluded to fix prices. Ofgem says more than 4 million people who aren't on Maine's gas supply are being excluded from the best deals for their electricity, and firms must stop charging higher rates for those on prepayment meters. David Porter, the chief executive of the Association of Electricity Producers, is pleased that Ofgem dismissed the idea of price fixing.
It's the fact that coal and gas prices, which are so important to the energy market in the UK, are now globally driven, and there was nothing the UK could do about those rising prices, and eventually they were going to come through to customers' bills.
BBC Radio Manchester Sports with Steve Wilde.
Despite leading his side to the League Two playoff final last season, Rochdale's Keith Hill believes his job could be on the line if they produce any more performances like the one on Saturday. Hill was reacting to a 2-0 home defeat by Dagenham and Redbridge. Liverpool's victory at Manchester City has come at a cost. Defender Martin Skirtle, who was stretchered off during the 3-2 win, suffered cruciate ligament damage to his right knee. It's an injury that could sideline him till Christmas. Michael Owen still has an international future, according to the England goalkeeping coach Ray Clements. Despite being left out of the latest squad, Owen won't feature in games against Kazakhstan and Belarus. Poland failed to reinstate the country's football association before today's deadline set by FIFA, who'd demanded a reversal of the decision. Poland now risks suspension from all competitions and the loss of rights to be co-hosts for the 2012 European Championships. And in Speedway, Thomas Pish will make his debut for Bellevue tonight against Coventry.
BBC Radio Manchester satellite weather with Heather Stott.
Well, today is a generally dry and bright day. We will see some sunshine, but the cloud is going to increase as we go through this afternoon, and top temperatures will get to 12 Celsius.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Aye, you all right? Good-o. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk, and the text number 07786 206 951. Alan, if you want to talk about being passed over for promotion, try being a divorced teacher in a Roman Catholic school. That's Lawrence from Wigan. Chris in Warrington. Hiya, Chris.
Hi, Alan. I was just ringing just as a little bit of a warning for some of your listeners, really, over something that happened to me on Saturday.
Oh, right.
I received a letter. I obviously live in Warrington, and I received a letter from Warrington Borough Council concerning someone who, I don't know, trying to register on the Register of Electors from my address.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, I couldn't do anything on Saturday. I did ring the police, who weren't really interested at all.
No.
And I actually spoke to Warrington Borough Council today, and apparently it's, they are aware of it, and there's quite a few forms that have been downloaded off the internet where people are just picking random addresses and trying to register on the electoral roll.
Oh, very good.
So,
very good.
As you can imagine, when I received the letter on Saturday, I kind of thought, what the heck is this?
Yeah.
So
that is good. I wonder what, I mean, presumably they're wanting to do that in order to, I don't know, use it as an identity address for...
I would have thought so.
Yeah.
So I just thought it'd be worth just, you know, like, informing your listeners, particularly in the Warrington area, to just watch the post, because it actually came through and it just looked like a circular, to be quite honest.
Yeah. So if you get a letter off your local authority that you're not expecting, don't do the usual thing and just chuck it in the bin.
Exactly.
Actually open it, read it. It might contain something of interest to you.
Yes.
Even if you're not behind with your rates.
Well, yeah. I mean, I got onto them this morning. I was through to them at 20 to 9 this morning. And this guy said, oh, well, he said it's probably just a letter just seeing if he does live there or not.
Well, yeah.
But he said, I'll ring you back in a bit. And he rung me back. He said, yeah, it was what I thought. And he said there's quite a few that have gone out. So
I mean, don't give me the name, but was it addressed to you or to this...
It was addressed to this other person.
This fictitious person?
Yes.
Yes.
So I thought it would have been a bit naughty opening it, actually, but...
I also think you I mean, I don't think anyone's going to do you any harm, but if you do get letters that are addressed to somebody else at your address, really, you ought to return them not known at this address, but I bet you're glad you opened that one.
I certainly am.
Yeah,
I thought about just putting it back in the post, you know, but I thought, well, maybe not.
Yeah, well, we wouldn't recommend to open anybody else's mail, which technically is an offence, but I've never heard of anyone being prosecuted for it.
No.
So don't worry about it. I open everything that comes to our house without even looking at the envelope. Well, obviously the envelope, but not the address.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
If you don't look at the envelope, you can take your thumb off with a paper knife. That's it. Have a good day, Chris. Thank you for the warning.
No
Chris in
problem.
Warrington. That's it. That's an interesting warning. I wonder how many they've sent out. So Warrington Council have sent at least one letter out to somebody who is attempting to register as a voter, a potential voter, to register on the electoral register of voters in an address in Warrington, which turned out to be Chris's address. It wasn't him. It was nothing to do with him. Has that happened to you? I know we talk about identity theft and we almost gloss over it when we talk about it. We say very little about it. But I got this from Karen. Well, it's a little while ago now when we were talking about it, but Karen says, I've been the victim of identity theft. I discovered it a fortnight ago and immediately contacted the debt collection agency, who took all my details and then did absolutely nothing until yesterday, when I received a nasty letter from them telling me that they were taking me to court if I didn't pay up by the 28th of September. I think you'd be very impressed with the letter I've sent to them. Uses lots of nice words like negligence and failure. I sent it by registered post today. We'll see what happens when the deadline passes. Well, it has passed, and I've heard no more from Karen, so presumably she's heard no more from her letter threatener, as it were. But have you experienced identity theft at whatever degree? I was quite concerned about it after having my credit cards and a couple of other identifiable things stolen whilst on holiday in France, and took steps to find out whether my identity was being pinched. I don't like that. Who would want to pinch mine? Only a foreigner that doesn't know me, obviously. But I was fine, so I've no experience of it. Although I did, if you like, have to consider what would happen. Kevin's furious. That bloke's just been handed down a 7-year jail sentence for causing death by dangerous driving. Should be welcomed by all motorists, and a warning to those who drive dangerously. Recently, I saw a police motorway patrolman on television. He said they weren't interested in people driving at 80 or 85 miles per hour because on the motorway everybody does it. What they were interested in are dangerous drivers. In the next scene, he went on to arrest an immigrant driving at 112 miles per hour whilst drunk and without a valid licence. Proper motorway policing, in my opinion, says Kevin. Yeah, I wouldn't rely on that. They don't bother up to 85. They don't bother. I wouldn't rely on it personally, but if you want to, you go ahead. Liz in Bolton says, I know you'll poo-poo this, but I feel we should let in anyone who has skills which the country needs, like other countries, for instance, Canada. The willy-nilly acceptance of just about everyone will eventually cause real problems. I honestly do worry about the health service and other organisations which are struggling to cope with the sheer numbers of people. Even local GP surgeries, dentists, they're sinking under the weight. We are, after all, says Liz, a small island, and there's only so much space. With your philosophy, we'll all be swimming for it in a very short space of time. OK. I disagree with your conclusion, but your view, fine. If people have got skills and they're the ones you let in, that's your policy. No problem with that. Alan, the as long as they should contribute criterion is very easy to define. Any immigrant to a country should put in more than they take out, whether it's through their labour and or their financial contributions in spending, paying taxes and the like. As long as this amounts to more than any benefits they or their immediate family are taking from the state, then clearly they're making a contribution. Well, yes, I understand that element of the logic, but it hits a problem. I've been contributing to the system since the age of about 16 when I left school and started to work. I haven't been unemployed at any point during that. I've had no major illnesses. And I've paid in that time, along with other people like me, a very substantial amount of money. It'd make your eyes water, I should think, if you added it all up, what you've paid in income tax and road tax and all the other flaming taxes, purchase tax, VAT, all the taxes and national insurance contributions we pay. So I will have paid that sum, as will anybody else of my age and my track record in employment. Others will pay more, others will have paid less. But somebody who arrived in the country only 5 years ago, say, to do a plumbing job. So they arrive, plumbing's comparatively well paid. Let's say they're paying tax in that, and they're paying national insurance in that, and they're spending money in the shops. They're contributing to the economy. And then they're hit by a truck and they need major surgery. Do we say, sorry, you've not yet contributed enough to benefit from the National Health Service? Well, if we do that, do we have to say to the 5-year-old that you haven't contributed a penny? Yes, your parents have, but you haven't. I mean, where do we draw the line? When would a person be entitled to benefit? Because there are some benefits that are rightly contribution-related. There are other benefits that are automatic, like the health service and one or two others. It's just interesting. I'm just interested in where the line gets drawn, in your view.
Caffeinated conversation with Heather Stott and friends. What was it like being part of this very professional machine that is TV?
Oh, man, it's not easy. Waiting in the cold around for hours on end.
I'm sorry, but I'm not buying that. You pretend for a living, that's what you do. Don't tell me that dressing up and be on the telly is hard work. Do you find that the four of you are honest? Yeah, I think so. Are you? Yeah. Why are you laughing, Graham?
When you said about being honest, this is an estate agent.
No, I don't lie. I'm just very economical with the truth. That's me.
Do you like that?
Tomorrow morning from 9 on BBC Radio Manchester.
Yeah, very good day to you.
Lunchtimes belong to Beswick.
Allan Beswick.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Tom in High Lane. Hi, Tom.
Hello, Alan. How are you?
Very well. What have you
Good.
got, mate?
Yeah, well, I know you're very provocative at times, but I think on this question of immigration, you've gone too far. It's as though you're wanting an open-door policy, and you're in good company because William Rees-Mogg some years ago was advocating the same approach. It seems to me to be totally irresponsible. The government actuary is saying that by 2030, in this country, we will have 68 million. And when you think of the numbers in this country now, particularly if you relate it to the square kilometres, the number of people in a square kilometre, we are far in excess of most countries. One of your earlier callers talked about Canada. Now, can I say that in Canada, a person needs a sponsor to settle in the country, to be guaranteed financially for 3 years. And during this time, there is no government support. Healthcare has to be guaranteed. And only when you become a Canadian citizen do you obtain benefits. Now, we've, for the last, 10, 15 years, we've just had this open-door policy. We've had no control whatsoever. We haven't distinguished between asylum seekers, genuine asylum seekers, and economic migrants. And poor Phil Woolis has got more than a job on his hand. Because...
well, there's no question that he's got more than a job on his hand. I don't think you and I will ever disagree on that.
We won't agree on that, no. He has.
OK. Let me... You did say one thing, which is actually incorrect, although it's opinion rather than fact.
Yeah, go on.
And that is that you said we have no controls at all. That isn't true.
Just now, they're now bringing recent controls.
Well, Tom, it's not true. We do have controls.
Well,
there are... Well, you may think you may think... I always have this trouble. When somebody makes an absolute statement, I'm required, on the basis of just what the facts are, to challenge that. And I really don't want to divert into this. I want you to have your say. Yeah. But there are controls. If you live on for example, the Indian or the African continent, and you want to fly to the United Kingdom, you can't without, first of all, getting permission to do so in your own country. Now, some do it illegally, not flying, but when you say there are no controls, that is actually factually wrong. You may think they're not good enough, but that's another story.
Shall we say that weak controls, very weak controls.
OK, if that's your view, I'll take that.
But can I take you? I've worked in the Maldives, I've worked in other places. Now, in the Maldives, they have people coming from Sri Lanka, from India and from other places to work there on a 2-year contract. That's their normal thing. You can't become a citizen there. And similarly, in many of the Arab countries, you have the same arrangement. People go and work on a contract for 2 years or more. But you don't...
OK, let me because we're running out of time before the news. Let me truncate all of that.
Yeah.
I fully accept that there are countries around the world that have far more stringent immigration policies than our own. You mentioned the Maldives. You can't even take a Bible in there, which I think is ludicrous.
You're right.
I know. The Arab countries you've mentioned. You mentioned Canada, the United States. They've all got different ones. I want to make the decisions about our country on the basis of our interpretation of the moral thing to do. Now, yours and mine differ, but I don't want to make a decision, oh, Canada have got it, therefore we'll have it. You tell me what policy you want in our country and why.
Yes, but what consultation has taken place between government and people on this whole issue of immigration?
None. Along with the speed limit on the motorway, the size of the retirement pension. That's not how our country works. What I want is your opinion. I really do, but I want yours.
Well, I recognise that there are genuine asylum seekers who need some protection and help. In terms of economic migrants, I think we've got to be very, very discriminating. Because we just can't let everyone in.
And how... Well, OK, that's your view. I'm thankful for your view about those who genuinely are requiring asylum. But then the economic migrant, everyone that emigrates from the United Kingdom is an economic migrant, so let's not condemn economic migrancy. But tell me how you would quantify those who wish to economically migrate to the UK. What would be your criteria, Tom?
Well, my basic criteria is saying, look here, because of our housing situation, obviously our financial crisis at the moment, and it's not going to go away in 5 minutes, we've got to really identify areas where people are required. But the trouble is, and I'm afraid we look around certain areas of the country, especially in the north, where there seems to be a real division between the indigenous people and those who are coming from outside. It's a sad fact.
Well, was it ever thus? Good on you, Tom. I lived in Winchester for about 6 months. My neighbour never spoke to me. And that's what you get. I mean, it's a lot easier to get a black guy into Manchester than it is to get a northerner into Winchester. Good on you, Tom.
Okay.
Have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
It's just gone 1:20 on BBC Radio Manchester. News headlines. Michelle Adamson.
Former Chief Constable of Greater Manchester, Michael Todd, had looked at websites about suicide and sent farewell text messages in the days before his death. Professional footballer Luke McCormick has been jailed for 7 years and 4 months after he admitted causing the deaths of 2 boys from Trafford when he was drink driving. Taxpayers' money could be used to buy up shares from banks. Gordon Brown's thinking about the multi-billion-pound plan in the hope it'll make the banks happier to start lending money again. And Manchester's weather becoming more cloudy this afternoon, highs of 12 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
If you're travelling through Bolton on Berry Road on the A58, there's a contraflow between Milnthorpe Road and Tongbridge, so watch out for slight delays. And in Burton Wood, Phipps Lane still closed in both directions because of a collision that's happened between Chapel Lane, Clay Lane and Back Lane, so again watch out for localised delays. And I'm afraid delays up to an hour can still be expected on Virgin train services between Crewe and Preston and Crewe and Liverpool Lime Street because of signalling problems in the Winsford area. Now, if you could update me further, call in this afternoon on 061 244 4951. I'm Carol Banks.
With more updates than the other guys. 2020 traffic.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Back to the story of the late Chief Constable Michael Todd. Looking up on the internet how to commit suicide. Mark in Stockport does the old one, I'm afraid. He says he could have gone to the library and asked, have you got any books on how to commit suicide? We used to have loads in our library, but they never bring them back. That is such a good gag. It was well worth revisiting. 0161 228 2255. Radio Manchester at bbc.co.uk. And of course you can text on 07786 206 951. Tom, with his immigration policy, and one of the things he mentioned was we can let fewer in at the moment, fewer people from abroad into our country at the moment, because of our financial circumstances. It's rather harsh on some poor soul that wants to come to the United Kingdom to say, we can't let you in because the bankers are all thieves.
Talking sense every lunchtime. Allan Beswick and you.
BBC Radio Manchester.
Nobody would ever be allowed to go anywhere. Refat in Rochdale, hi.
Hi, Alan.
What can we do for you?
Alan, it's quite an interesting conversation you're having at the moment regarding immigration. Excellent. The thing is, Alan, on the one hand, we're talking about, not allowing certain people into the country. But then again, we seem to be selling, take Manchester City Football Club. We just sold that to, is it someone in Dubai? Also, Liverpool's going down the same road,
Liverpool's already there. It's owned by...
Is it?
Yeah, I think Liverpool's owned by an Americans, as is Manchester United's owned by Americans. Chelsea's owned by a Russian.
Right.
I think there's a bid gone in by some Middle Eastern group for Everton. So, yeah, some of our businesses are owned by foreign companies.
So what is actually ours then? Where does the cut-off point come when, with these immigrants coming in? Obviously, I have my views that we've got enough people now from great, we've got a lot of diversity, but since we've joined, the global market, and free enterprise and all that, we're still going to keep getting people to come in. We're not going to be that isolated island we were.
Indeed. I don't think there are any countries anywhere in the world that forbid multimillionaires going to live there. It's very, very difficult to move into the United States of America, for example, to live there. Very difficult indeed. But if you're rich enough to live without troubling them, and they'll let you in. I noticed that Stephen Fry in the newspaper this morning, he's quoted as saying he might go and live in America. The lad's a multimillionaire. America won't say you can't come because they don't care. He's loaded. So rich people have always been able to live wherever they want. But there are other people, perhaps even comfortably off people, who aren't as free. And that's the issue. You say you've got thoughts on it. What are they?
Well, basically, somebody talked about contributing to the country. About 30 years ago, so I was born in England, so basically I'm English at the end of the day. My parents came over from India and worked very hard to raise us, and basically contributed by working in the mills and, running shops and doing what they had to do. Now, the lack of skills in this country, majority of the doctors now are from abroad, aren't they?
I don't know whether it's the majority, but certainly a high proportion, and it might be the majority, yes.
Yeah. So basically, the skills that we do need is, at the moment, our economy is in a real bad way. Maybe because most of the cash that we've got in this country has gone out overseas, and it has. We know that because, Dubai is really progressing, isn't it? It's building on buildings, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, the statement that our money has gone overseas, I'm not sure I would agree with that. I think certainly a great deal of investment has gone on overseas, but that investment has gone with the objective of developing a return. I mean, one is not an example, but I think it's an exemplar. There's a woman I used to know who owned a steel factory, and they would build bridges or provide the steel to build bridges in foreign lands. So that would be work that was being done somewhere else. There would be investment somewhere else, but the steel would be made and procured in this country. So it's not quite so isolationist, and Britain is still one of the largest, if not the largest, holder of businesses in foreign lands. Britain is still a massive owner of businesses in foreign lands. We're absolutely huge in that.
Well, I totally agree on you on that. I think we've lost a lot of our professionals, good people, good qualified people to places like the Eastern Bloc, you know, Bulgaria, these new up-and-coming European countries. You know, we've got most of our, like, property people are selling that have left this country to go live in Bulgaria and other parts of the world are actually selling property. So that's where some of the money is actually going, isn't it, now?
Well, some of it, yes. In the end, an immigration policy is set by the home nation. We don't have an emigration policy, be it businesses or anything else. We did for a while in the 60s, where you were only allowed to take £250 out of the country and things like that, but we don't anymore. We have an immigration policy, and in the end you have to have a process of deciding who should come in and who shouldn't come in. You said that your parents came in from India all those years ago and began working in the mills and the like. Well, that's not a unique experience, as you know. Many Asian people, there were actually recruitment drives in India and the Indian subcontinent to do exactly that. So here we have to decide today, if you like, who we want.
It just sounds like it's a rich and poor thing, isn't it, really? Because what you've got, like, you know, like Manchester City being bought out, it's okay if you're rich, but if you're, like, poor, then basically there's an immigration sort of element attached to it, isn't
well,
it?
yes, but the rich, as I say, the rich can live wherever they like. Now, it stinks in many, many ways, but that's how the world is. What we have to consider is, if a rich man comes to this country and breaks his leg, he goes to a private hospital, gets his leg mended, pays for that, and him breaking his leg actually adds to the contribution he's made to the country because it leaves his money here. If a poor person comes to this country and breaks his leg, he's taken to the local NHS hospital, and £5,000, £6,000, £7,000 is spent mending his leg. So basically, his existence here has cost you and me, taxpayers, £7,000. I'm not condemning that, but that is the reality of life. Those who are rich don't have to worry about that. So
should they not be paying towards the NHS?
Well, they
for that
do.
treatment?
Well, the rich person probably won't trouble the NHS. I feel sure that if Abramovich, who's just spending £180 million on a yacht, apparently, I feel sure that if Abramovich fell over at a Chelsea game and broke his leg, I very much doubt he'd be taken to the local infirmary. I think he'd almost certainly be taken to the hospital where the royals go. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it wouldn't cost you or me 1 single cent. So, but if I don't know, somebody, one of the cleaners, and I bet not many of the cleaners at Chelsea or any of the other places are English descent. If one of the cleaners fell over and broke his or her leg, they'd be whisked off to the local NHS.
Right.
That means they're costing us money.
So what you're talking about, Alan, is means testing, aren't you? Like the old social security.
I'm not talking about means testing, I'm talking about a doorway. We have a border. Those people who are already here, they're here, and I think we should treat them with respect. Those people who want to come here, we surely get to decide which ones of them are allowed and which ones are not. The rich, they're not going to cost us anything. Who cares where they live? What about the others? How do we let them in? Who do we let in? In your view, Rafat?
Well, like you say, I'd say means test, definitely. If they've got, like, £2,000-3,000 in the bank before they come, then yeah, that's okay. Then if they do break their leg, they can, you know, what savings they've got in the bank, they can pay for that themselves as they use the NHS. But also they've got to be able to speak the language, you know, speak English, you know, and be able to adapt to the way we live here. I think, yeah, it is a rich poor thing at the end of the day, not so much race, because you've got Polish, you've got Bulgarians, you've got everybody now coming in. But the thing is, you know, means testing, it has to be. That's the one way, because, you know, when people talk about a person's pocket, you know, that's where it hurts the most, doesn't it?
Well, Absolutely so. Good on you. Thank you very much indeed, Rifat.
All
Have
right.
a good day. 0161 228 2255. If you've something to say, feel free. You can talk about anything today for reasons... Well, no, there are reasons. I suppose the principal reason is that Phil Willis, who's now in charge of immigration to our country, has said that we should have a cap. There should be a maximum number. Now, caps are very strange things. If you, for example, say we're only going to allow 50,000 people into the country, well, you clearly would be unwise to simply allow the first 50,000 and then say, right, that's it. We're only halfway through January. We're full. That's your lot, 50,000, because there will be people beyond that who are legitimate asylum seekers who will say, well, am I to die now? Am I to be tortured to death in my home country because you've reached your cap? Well, that would be wicked by many people's measure. Not by any means all, but that would be wicked by many people's measures. So you already start saying, well, OK, genuine asylum seekers are allowed in. As soon as you go down that road, you can't just let in the genuine asylum seekers, because you also have to simultaneously let in the ingenuine ones, the rogue ones, because you have to find them out. It's rather like the police can't just question the guilty. They question all sorts of people to decide which one is guilty. And it's an unfortunate analogy because it makes being asylum seeker sound like guilt. I didn't mean that. But you, in order to decide who is and who isn't a genuine asylum seeker, you have to talk to everybody who is claiming so to be. That takes time, and that means you've got people in the country who, frankly, have no right in that policy to be here. But if you have a simple position where you say, OK, we'll allow 50,000, well, all right, 50,000 it is. But what if we suddenly need another 500 bus drivers, as we did just very recently? Do you say, well, they can't come and the buses will have to stay in the garage because, frankly, we haven't got any room left in our immigration quota? I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. But would you say 50,000, therefore it's, what's the figure, 6,000 a month? Is that what you'd say? How do you balance it? What do you do? It's rather like years ago when they first released money and they said, OK, everybody will be entitled to have their loft insulated. And what used to happen was local authorities were given the money, and local authorities then allocated the money. And by the end of June, given that the local authority year begins on the 1st of April, by the end of June, all the money had gone. So all those people who applied after June were told, sorry, there's no more money. You can't have it. And that's what happened. They didn't get it. They had to apply in April the next year and apply again and try to get it then. And often didn't. Some did, some didn't. So it was rationed in that way. Are we going to do that with immigration? So, OK, the number's 50,000. We got 50,000 in January. So in February, March, April, May, etc., no one's allowed in. Weird. Don't know how you'd work that. Kevin says, Alan, you have many times invited comments on immigration. Have you ever had anybody who is in favour of it, apart from immigrants themselves, of course? The answer to that question, I'm proud to tell you, is a very, very, very loud yes. Yes. A number of people, I couldn't tell you the number, it's a small number, I assure you, but a number of people have said, yeah, immigrants make a massive contribution to our society, both culturally. I mean, just look at just look at our diet. Apparently, the most popular meal in the UK these days is chicken tikka masala. Now, I do know that chicken tikka masala wasn't invented in India, or even on the Indian subcontinent anywhere. It was probably invented in a curry house in Blackpool, or Blackburn, or even Bradford. Anywhere like that. Might have even been here. It might have been up the Curry Mile. That's where it was invented, but it was invented by people who came to our country. As a kid, the idea of going for a Chinese, as we used to say, or an Indian, was exotic. It was really, really exotic. I remember the first Chinese chippy in Warrington. Blimey, let's go and try that. What's it like? Exactly. So people coming into this country of ours has made our country what it is. along with the people who are already here, of course. So I do hear people saying, yeah, let's have more people coming in. Let us change our culture. Let's make our culture the cosmopolitan culture it wants to be. Then there are others who say, let's send them all home. So what contributions do people make? You can't always quantify it. You can't. It's very difficult. I didn't eat pasta until I joined the army. Would you believe that? And they offered me spaghetti. Dear God, what is it? And in the army, you either eat or you don't eat. There's none of that, well, I don't like that, can I have something else? It's dinner or no dinner. That's it. And sometimes it's dinner whether you like it or not, because they're in charge. And you'll bloody well eat it or serve time. So that's how it changed me. But we didn't have that. It's all changed now. You can't move in town for Italian restaurants. There's even a Lebanese restaurant. Huh? And yet there are still places serving what we call English food. That's all part of our culture. Our culture has changed. Our music has changed. Rock and roll is a derivative of what used to be called black music in the 20s and 30s. So everything in this country, everything is touched by the cultural changes brought about by immigration. And if you don't think that, then join me on the Italian parades in Manchester or the St Patrick's Day parades in Manchester, and the Lord knows who else wandering round with sticks in the air with flags on. 0161 228 2255. Dave in Wigan says, who knows how many people are here illegally? Will those same unknown people register on the 2011 Celsius? That's hot, isn't it? The 2011 census, if they're still here. Dave from Wigan. Nobody knows how many people are here illegally. Every figure you ever read is a guesstimate. Nobody knows. You can't know. Otherwise, it wouldn't be legal, would it? And they wouldn't be here. They'd be sending them home. So nobody knows how many people are here illegally. Will they register in the census? They will if they think that by registering, they will become legal. So, probably not, is the simple answer. Probably not. Here's a thought. Should we have an amnesty? It's costing us a fortune, a small fortune, to sort out who is, who isn't, and all the rest of it. Well, let us presume that Phil Willis gets his cap on immigration and says that's the number henceforth. Should we then say to all the ones that are here, right, you're here, we accept you, get registered. Have an amnesty on those who are already here. Should we have that? You tell me. 0161 228 2255. Just on 20 to 2. BBC GMR News Headlines. Mairead O'Kane.
An inquest has heard how Michael Todd sent a last text message before he died saying, I'm sorry for what I've done, forgive me, in another life. The former chief constable also visited a number of websites to get advice on suicide in the run-up to his death. A professional footballer is being jailed for over 7 years for causing the deaths of two brothers from Trafford by dangerous driving. Luke McCormick, who is Plymouth Argyle's goalkeeper, was over the drink-drive limit at the time of the crash on the M6 in Staffordshire. Share prices in Europe and Asia have fallen as the international markets react to a weekend of deals intended to support European banks. In London, the 100 share index is down by around 6%. That's in line with stock markets in France and Germany. Manchester's weather staying sunny at first this afternoon, but it will become cloudy later. Highs of 12 Celsius.
BBC Radio Manchester, 2020 traffic.
In Burton Wood, Phipps Lane's closed off because of a collision between Chapel Lane and Back Lane, so watch out for delays in the area. And now to Oldham Road in Manchester on the A62, and one lane's closed off outside the sorting office whilst water maintenance work continues on the outbound between Livesey Street and Poland Street. And on the trains, delays of up to an hour can still be expected between Crewe, Preston, Liverpool, Lime Street because of signalling problems in Winsford. Now, if you can update me further this afternoon, call in. The number's 0161 244 4951. I'm Cara Banks.
BBC Radio Manchester, Sports with Joanne Smith.
Good afternoon. Well, despite guiding Rochdale to League Two playoff final last season, manager Keith Hill believes his job could be on the line if they produced any more performances like the one on Saturday. Hill was reacting to a 2-0 home defeat by Dagenham and Redbridge.
Have I lost the players? I would say I haven't lost the players, but only time will tell. If we were on a bad run now, for me, that type of performance could seriously get somebody the sack. It's the worst performance since we took over, in my opinion.
Liverpool's comeback victory at Manchester City has come at a cost. Defender Martin Skirtle, who was stretchered off during the 3-2 win, suffered cruciate ligament damage to his right knee. It's an injury that could sideline him until Christmas. City, meanwhile, will be without Pablo Zabaleta for 3 games following his sending off against Liverpool. Michael Owen still has an international future. That's according to England goalkeeping coach Ray Clements, despite being left out of the latest squad. Owen won't feature in games against Kazakhstan and Belarus, despite proving his fitness and form with Newcastle. International breaks are hardly the kind of thing usually welcomed by top clubs, but United's Mike Phelan believes Cristiano Ronaldo will benefit from some time with Portugal. He'll play World Cup qualifiers in Sweden and at home to Albania. And despite not yet being 100% fit, that's no problem for United's assistant manager.
Well, I think Cristiano will say himself that, he's still got a bit to do, but he's now got an international setup to go to. He's got a couple of games there, so by the time he comes back, he should be further forward and raring to go.
Gareth Owen could again find himself on the sidelines for Stockport's game at Bury in the John Stones Paint Trophy tomorrow. Owen missed the win over Oldham on Friday after taking exception to being substituted in a previous match. Well, Bury have injury doubts over Effie Sodji, David Buchanan, Andy Morell and Michael Jones ahead of that match tomorrow. Poland failed to reinstate the country's football association before today's deadline set by FIFA, who had demanded a reversal of the decision. Poland now risks suspension from all competitions and the loss of the rights to co-host the 2012 European Championships. James DeGale, Britain's Olympic middleweight boxing champion, says he'd love to defend the title of the London 2012 Games. However, he's torn between doing that and accepting one of the financially lucrative offers he would have to turn professional. But will £1 million be enough for him?
To be honest, I'm looking for more than that. I'm looking for over a couple of years. I'm being serious, I'm being truthful, because that's what I am. I'm looking 2 million over 2 years maybe, get me? That's what I'm looking at.
Not much then. And in Formula One motor racing, BMW Sauber have ended weeks of speculation by announcing it will retain Robert Kubica and Nick Heidfeld as its drivers for next year. Kubica is currently 3rd in the Drivers' Championship, while Heidfeld is 5th. Thomas Pish will make his debut for Bellevue tonight against Coventry. That's despite walking away from a major pile-up on Saturday. The 30-year-old Pole was involved in a crash whilst riding for Birmingham in the Premier League. Well, the Aces must win tonight to avoid next week's home and away relegation playoffs against Wolverhampton.
The next live action on the Northwest's biggest sports station.
It comes tomorrow evening during Reloaded from 7 with news of both local matches in the John Stones Paint Trophy.
BBC Radio Manchester.
I bring you this report just for the joy of it. The president of the travel organisation ABTA was refused boarding by a budget airline after arriving late at check-in. It was disclosed today. He was flying to his company's annual conference in Gran Canaria. He failed to make the EasyJet flight from Gatwick Airport on Saturday following a breakdown of an airport shuttle train. He was forced to take another flight, although his original EasyJet flight actually took off 70 minutes late. A spokesman for Gatwick Airport said today that the shuttle train taking passengers from the south terminal to the north had broken down. EasyJet said the passenger was late for check-in. We have a very strict policy that passengers must check in at least 40 minutes before their flight. So the president at ABTA was told, you're not getting on. Fantastic. Peter in Hyde. Hi,
hello,
Peter.
Hello, Alan. I know you come from Bolton.
I don't. I come from Warrington, but do go on.
No, come on. But I know you did do them. Put it that way. Right.
No, I've always come from Warrington.
Oh, sorry, I'm okay.
So, don't worry. Don't worry.
Right. They've all been on about these bin men in Bolton. They've got to take £4,000 off in the wages. Right. Now this is going to be a bit political. You might not know what I'm going to say.
I can cope.
I think you can. Now, some of these councillors are on between £13,000 and £20,000 a year. Get rid of them because they don't want them, and there's the wages. There's the wages.
It's a nice thought.
It's a melting thought.
There are probably rather more bin men than there are councillors.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So the mathematics don't stand up, or the arithmetic doesn't stand up. And why do you say we don't need councillors?
Well, if they're going to get rid of these men, right, them councillors are not on their committee, yet, if they're going to get rid of the men. They don't want them councillors. They've got something in today's day.
Okay, well, the councillors don't actually run the council.
Well, who runs it then?
The executive officers.
Well, the executive obviously won't take us up in their wages, will they?
Well, they might, actually. I don't know what the rate is. The story you're referring to is the fact that Bolton have been told, along with many other local authorities, that they can no longer pay a different rate of pay to women and men, which they've done rather disgracefully for donkey's years. Yeah. And what they're having to do, because they don't have any more money, what they're having to do is share the money they've got, the annual budget they've got every year, out amongst the people in a different way. And that means that some of the male employees, who have for decades been paid better than their female counterparts, are going to have to lose money. Now, if you sack all the councillors, or
no,
even
I didn't say sack them all,
or some of the councillors, first of all, the savings wouldn't be that great, because they don't all get 30,000 a year.
No, I said 20, between 13 and 20,000.
Well, they don't all get a fortune every year. There aren't that many of them when you start thinking about the number of people in the local authority. And all those people who are always telling me what use are councillors are the first to go knocking on their councillor's door when they have a local problem.
Yeah, I understand that bit, but some of them are not worth the seats they sit on.
Well, I'm prepared to accept that as a definition, but the people of Bolton, or whatever local authority it is, will have the opportunity to express that view at an election. But if you do away with the councillors, you leave the local authority in the hands of the employees, the executives, and they're the ones that have been paying the money out.
It's true, but what I'm trying to put over, it's always the working class people what get it first, not these hierarchy people, not the big fat bosses.
Well, you're possibly true, but possibly correct, but whilst there are a number of men working for Bolton Council and many other councils grumbling like beggary, there are quite a lot of working class women saying about time too.
Oh, I agree.
Because they've got their wages lifted. So
correct. I understand what you're saying, Alan.
So they're taking £4,000 off the bin men, but they're not giving it to the councillors or even to the local restaurants. They're giving it to the women.
Yeah, I can understand it. But what I'm trying to say, why is it always the first thing the council say, we're going to this, we're going to do that, we're going to do that? But they don't seem to have their staff passes knocked off, and this, that, and the other. Oh no, you mustn't touch them. They've got to have their Christmas parties and Christ knows what. But the local men don't. They've got to say, oh, we've got to take this, and that's it.
You have me at a loss. I've never been invited to.
No, I haven't either.
No, I'm not aware.
Yes, because I used to work for the local council.
Yes.
And how they work, Alan. I know how they work.
And they had a staff party, did they?
Oh, they have a big staff party every Christmas.
Yeah.
Oh yes, they have a big do, and one thing or another. I know all about it. And when these
tell me about it, because you say you know all about it.
Well, I don't know anything about it.
I mean, I don't think there are many people who would begrudge the local authority having a Christmas party.
When the election's on, and the local authorities, now you can go and ask your friend, Pat Carney.
Well, I don't have to ask anyone. I'm listening. I'm listening to you, and I think Pat Carney would be grossly offended to be suggested he's my friend. But do go on.
Go on. Like I say, when these people have the council election and the votes fetched in, you'll find out. I don't know if he still does, but they all used to be the gaffers, but used to count the votes and get paid on the clock till it was finished.
Well, I'm afraid. I don't know when you were last at an election count. You've probably been to more than I, because I've never been to one. But I know a lot of people that have, because, of course, I've presented, I think it's every election programme in Radio Manchester for the last 20 years. And I've had representatives at every count. And my understanding is that there are far too many people doing the counting for them all to be gaffers.
There's quite a few there, and
you may be correct. I'm just pointing out that it isn't. I'm just pointing out it isn't just the gaffers that do it.
There used to be an old saying and all in Manchester.
I'm sure
if there was no snow around the town hall, there was no snow in Manchester.
I'm sure that has meaning, and if I find it...
That is true, Alan, that is true.
Well, it's true, or it's true that it was said, or the statement...
That is the true statement they used to say. If there's no snow around the town hall, there's no snow in Manchester.
And what was that meant to convey?
That meant to convey that the streets and the roads had to be done, but now they say, no snow around the town hall, there's no snow at all. I've been out and sprayed everything, done everything for these councils to walk in. It's marvellous on what goes on. You want to do a programme about them, but it's political, and you go into the political.
Well, I have no trouble with politics. Indeed, I spent half of my life dabbling around in the outskirts, poking in the eye of politicians and politics.
Yeah.
But you seem to be suggesting that they let the rest of Manchester, rest of the area of jurisdiction of Manchester go to hell, providing the town hall's all right. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah,
would have been so much easier.
You've only got to walk around and see the state of the place at times. Everything's perfect in the city. It's like every other city. You're on the outside. They worse than Beirut, but the council's worried. Could they care less? No, they're not interested.
All right, mate. Good on you. The councillors couldn't care less, and I've not heard that phrase before, and hopefully won't for a year or two again. But if there's no snow around the town hall, then it's not snowing. Right? Seems to convey something. Is it snowing? Does anybody know?
Greetings, good lady. A flagon of your finest ale, if you please.
Certainly, kind sir. Shouldst thou not be out looking for work?
But soft, what light through yonder pub door breaks? It is the East End, and Bianca is the sun.
Ricky! Ricky! Wherefore art thou, Ricky?
Do something different and make a difference for BBC Children in Need.
Oh, sorry, this call sits digging right in me.
Oh, this codpiece is killing me.
For your fundraising pack, call 0345 607 3333.
It's back. Children in Need. Scary Wogan. Dave in Bury says, can you tell me, are you a NIMBY? Why, you may ask? Well, this morning on the BBC News, it was announced that the government are considering building a new prison in your backyard. Have you got any comments to make on this? We're going to have to improve the size of our backyard, I tell you. It won't fit a prison. I don't know where you mean. If you mean the one in Warrington, I don't live there. They can do what they like to it. Yeah, just interested, that's all, said Dave in Bury. But I probably would be a NIMBY if they were going to build a prison in my backyard. Yeah, I probably would have something to say about that, and it wouldn't be complimentary. Ted in Moston, amnesty for illegal immigrants? No! Send them all home. The British Isles are overpopulated by 30 million. They've no right to be here, and as such should be on the next boat to Calais. And advocating cultural genocide is neither big nor clever. You little red-headed dimmy. Doesn't have an H in it, by the way. I hope when the Islamists take over, you're the first one to have your head cut off, says Ted in Moston. Well, when the Islamists take over, I just might be. Because I'm proud to say I've upset them and all. Clive in Northwich says, I went on a defensive driving course with Cheshire Police, paid for by my old employer. This was before my redundancy. The officer running the course said that when speeding, you would be allowed a grace of 10% plus 2, i.e., speed limit 30 mile an hour, get away with 35. Speed limit 40, get away with 46. Speed limit 70, get away with 79. Really? So how come I once got done going through, it was one of them camera jobbies, for 32 miles per hour. Cost me 60 quid, if I remember correctly. That's a long time ago. David says, Alan, suicide. How do you do it without hurting your family and friends? I worked opposite a lady who had her father commit suicide with a shotgun, and it hurt her very much. Just how do you do it? It's perhaps more difficult than you think. Well, yes, it is more difficult than perhaps I think, and frankly, because I spent a little bit of time as a psychiatric nurse, It clearly wasn't a very good one, because a number of our patients committed suicide. And it's horrible. It's horrible as the nurse, it's horrible for the family left behind and the rest of it. But there can't possibly be a website that tells you how you can do it without hurting your family, because it isn't possible to be done. So if some website says, well, if you do this, they won't be hurt, the website is talking bull stuff, because frankly, it cannot be achieved. People think committing suicide is a personal event, and it is. But it's also an extremely public event. Because for a start, if your granny dies peacefully in her sleep, then a couple of people down the street will know, her relatives will know, and you'll all have a share of the brass if she had any. So you'll all know. And you'll feel some pain, but, you know, you'll get over it, because that's what grannies are meant to do eventually, snuff it. That's how the world is. But if your brother, your son, your cousin tops his or herself, well, it won't be a her for a brother, I know, but if your sibling tops themselves, you'll feel that for the rest of your life, even if you hated the bugger. So, no, there can't be a website that says it won't hurt your friends. It will. See you tomorrow. Ta-ra.
Your chance to...